Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Shirley Talk. I'm Mike Mulrooney, and my sidekick is not here today. She's on a much-needed vacation. Kelly's got so many friends around town that it seems like every one of them, when they go on a beach vacation, they ask her to go. So anyway, and we're fully on board with people having their downtime. So today we have the chaplain here with us, Mr. Kurt Hodges from UofL Health and Brown Cancer Center. Did I get that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's
Thanks.
so many different names and stuff with the hospitals. I just want to make sure I get that correct.
Yeah.
So, I was telling you earlier, I've been in the hospital, unfortunately, numerous times, not as a patient all the time, but visiting people, and I've seen the chaplain door. And I've never understood what the chaplain at the hospital does. So I was wondering, it's great to have you in here and kind of talk about what it is that you all do, what's your purpose, what's your role. I'm assuming it's to comfort people, obviously, who are patients. So what is it what's your day look like as a chaplain at the hospital?
Yeah. So, as a chaplain, I'm here for spiritual and emotional care and support. So that's for patients. It's for families too. It's also for our staff. We're all going through difficult things at the hospital in different ways, whether we're experiencing it directly or whether we're caring for the people that are experiencing it. So I'm here to support everybody as best I can. So, in terms of spiritual care, that may or may not mean religious care. The way that I approach spiritual care is that it's about how people make meaning and have purpose in what they're going through. And it's also about connecting people with their strengths and about staying connected with ourselves in the moment, or mindfulness, about staying connected with our loved ones, other people, and connected with nature and with the sacred, the divine, that may or may not be God. We're not here just for care of folks who identify as religious or any particular religion. Chaplains are here to take care of everybody.
Okay, well that helps, because I grew up Catholic, and not everybody is Catholic, and some people are Christians. And I'll be honest, I still don't understand the difference between Catholics and Christians. I know some drink and some don't. So, and some like to gamble and some don't. So I always wondered. So it could be something that. Obviously it's not religious, but like you said, nature. So what do you do to educate yourself on how to, so what's it look like? Somebody comes up to you, who usually contacts you? The doctor, the nurses, and says, hey, can you go visit George on floor 3? He's struggling with, what would that be?
Yeah. Sometimes it is that someone's really upset, or there maybe somebody just got some new news about their condition, or what's going on, the latest development in their care, and they could use some support around that. Maybe it's maybe just that. Well, sometimes I'm cold calling. I'm going around and looking for folks who might be experiencing a difficult time and could maybe use some more support. Some of the people that I spend a whole lot of my time with don't necessarily have a lot of loved ones surrounding them. And as anybody knows who's gone through cancer or has had a loved one go through cancer under the best of circumstances with the best, most robust supports, it's still a very difficult thing to undergo. So for those folks that don't have people surrounding them, that are really alone in it, I'm helping them to connect with others who they might be able to make some good connections with, and that might be me, at least temporarily. If not, sometimes long term. There are folks who are in and out of the hospital and out of cancer care who I have a caretaker relationship with for sometimes years.
So it could, you walk in and pray with somebody. It could be you walk in and hold their hand and talk to them. It's funny you say cold calling. I have been in the hospital, even though I said I haven't been there. I have been in there a few times, and I'll be honest, the chaplain came in and introduced himself one time, and my first thought was, is this good or bad? Because if it's still, even though it's not all religious, chaplains still have in people's minds association with religion. So I'm immediately thinking last rites. I went in for a sprain, and the chaplain comes in and introduces himself. So do you have people get a little nervous when you walk in the door?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes when I'm introducing myself to folks, I just need to kind of make sure I'm explaining, like, I'm not here as the angel of death. I'm not here as the bearer of bad news.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. I'm it's a common misconception that a chaplain is the bearer of bad news. And in fact, I never deliver bad news. I might be there with someone when they get bad news.
Yeah.
But I'm there to support them through that and to support the people who are delivering that news too. And so sometimes my role can have different facets in that way. Sometimes it's, as I mentioned before, there to support the family too, as you were in that case.
Yeah.
And so what I try to do a lot of times when I introduce myself to folks, especially if I see that kind of wide-eyed look of, oh no, it's the chaplain. What does that mean? Yeah. I try to just quickly explain, like, I'm here for spiritual and emotional care. I'm here to meet people where they're at. I'm not here to proselytize or convince you of anything. If you want to pray together, I'm happy to do that right now. If you don't want to pray at all and that's not part of your orientation, that's great too. Let me see where you're at and what's going on for you. One thing that I think is really important that is a big part of my work is that the way cancer and cancer treatments affect people, it's different for every single person. And so what I try to do is approach people completely without assumption as much as possible, with openness and curiosity to say, what does this mean to you right now? How is this affecting your life? Maybe for some people, for example, their work identity is a huge part of who they are, and they can't keep up with their job right now because of their treatment schedule or whatever other aspect of going through cancer is. And so that sense of like, I'm not feeling connected with myself, with my identity, with who I am, that's not uncommon for me to encounter in someone. And that may or may not be, as we said, like explicitly religious and how I'm supporting them around that. It might be completely just about the context of their work life. And how can we either stay connected with that identity or find some other aspects of your identity that we can focus on right now that continue to help you feel like you're still you.
Mm-hmm. Do you handle, like, if someone is there and they're Christian or Catholic, what about if someone is Jewish or if the Buddhist, for example? Do you lean into those type of religions as well? Are you fluent? I don't know, fluent in those other religions, I guess you could say. Are you familiar with what they believe and how to handle those situations?
As much as I can be, yes.
Okay.
So to become a chaplain, the most common path to become a chaplain is to get a Master of Divinity degree, which the way the degree program I went through, I was studying world religions. I was studying all different kinds of orientations and beliefs, and how to locate myself and how to explore really deeply what it is that I hold dear and how that may or may not be the same as the people that I'm taking care of. And so absolutely, I'll care for folks of any orientation or belief system. And if I know a lot about it, I might try to help lean into that. If I don't, I just do my best to name that as, as humbly as I can. Like, well, I don't actually know a lot about what you're saying, you identify with. Tell me more, or tell me how I can help you connect with people that can support you better. Can I make a referral to your imam if you're a Muslim, or to your rabbi if you're Jewish, whoever that might be.
I bet that was a fun degree to get to. I've traveled a lot over years, and I've been to a lot of places in this world, and I'm fascinated by all the different cultures. Spent some time in Hong Kong and China area, and been up on some pretty amazing Buddhist temples. And, if you get outside of this world and you get to experience stuff like that, it really opens your mind up to the things that most people wouldn't see. So when you get the chaplain degree, is it like a master's or a doctorate, or what is that?
Yeah, so it's a master's degree, and it's a pretty robust master's degree.
See, I've never heard of that before, so I was going to ask how you got into this.
Yeah, this isn't my first career. Okay. I spent about 10, 12 years working in outdoor education and mountain guiding. I lived out in the West Coast and the Pacific Northwest, and I got to a point where it was time to make a transition in my career for a variety of reasons, not the least of which was I was having a family and couldn't be away from home for up to a month at a time. So as I was trying to explore what is it that I really want to do from here and what drives me the most about what I love so much about my career in outdoor ed, it was about that. It was about facing fears and being with people in their fear. I'm not down on the ground and talking to the person up on the ledge, I'm up on the ledge with them.
Yeah.
And that's a whole lot. That's a great metaphor for exactly what I do as a chaplain. I go get on the ledge with people, say like, you're really scared right now by what you're going through. How can I locate that fear in myself, in my own story? I don't know your fear, but I know fear. I don't know your pain, but I know pain. And so I can tap into that in me and that helps me to try to meet you where you're at. So that was, in a certain sense, what I was doing in outdoor education. And I was also working with helping people to go have transcendent experiences that help them to know more about who and what they are in the rest of their life when they're not out in the mountains or out on the water. So in that sense, being at the bedside in the hospital or in the cancer center isn't all that different.
So you gave up living up in the Northwest to come to Kentucky?
I did.
It's beautiful up there. I've been up there a lot too. So, you deal with a lot of grief, obviously. How do you handle obviously it's different for everybody, but how do you handle the why me? Why am I being put through this? Why is God given me this terminal illness? Do you get a lot of those questions, and how do you walk through that with people? It's got to be an emotional toll on you to handle stuff like that.
It can be. It's especially in that piece to try to get into those questions with someone, to locate it in myself. And I think just the most important thing I can do, again, is to not make assumptions about who or what God is to this person when they're saying, why did God do this to me? Some people's beliefs would include a God who might do this to them, and that it might be some kind of a punishment or a consequence to their actions. And so I want to explore that and find out, is that where you're at? Is that the way that you envision God and the way that you envision your place in the world? For others, that doesn't make any sense to them at all. And so I try to not take that for granted and see how we can try to explore those questions together and try to arrive at
some comforting solution.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's a pretty common question, and I still ask that. When my mom died, she was the sweetest person in the world, and she was also very religious. And so we'll never know the answer to those questions. It's just a matter of trying to get people through the hard times. Because when we first started Shirley's Way, and still today, every week we're standing around crying because of a situation somebody's in, and it has a toll on you. I mean, do you have some sort of mental block to kind of keep that from tearing you apart at night?
It's tough, right? Because if I'm blocking it off, if I'm trying to be callous to it, I'm not going to do a good job at my job. Yeah. But if I just let it all in all the time, I'm also going to burn out and not do a good job at my job. Yeah. So the way I have to try to approach that is to self-differentiate, to remember that when I'm away from my work, that I'm fully immersed in who I am as a person, as a husband, as a father, and just be fully immersed in my own story and my own spiritual practices, in the things that I do. I'm not an outdoor educator anymore right now, or a guide, but I still spend a lot of times outside, and that has a lot to do with how I take care of myself, is trail running and hiking and camping and cycling and things like that, climbing.
So you're still the person of nature.
I am.
Yeah. We go camping a lot and go to the lake, so we don't do as much hiking as I would like, but I enjoy getting through the woods. It's very peaceful. It just really, I don't know. You know the feeling when you're out in nature, walking through the woods. It's just a calming that you have.
Yeah.
So chaplain school, does it cover several different religions? I mean, the only ones I know is Christianity, Buddhism, being Jewish, Islam. Is there others out there? I mean, are there others that believe that their God is punishing them for something? And that's you kind of mentioned that a while ago. And, everybody always goes to the negative, but are there religions out there that believe that their God is punishing them for something? Or, I mean, I'm just curious. I don't know. I didn't know whether other religions are out there besides those 4 or 5.
Yeah, sure. There's a multitude and all kinds of, I think even what I encounter even more than a bigger diversity of faiths than you just described are a bigger diversity within those faiths. So, for example, especially here in Louisville, Kentucky, I encounter the majority of the people that I take care of identify as Christian, but there's vast many ways that people have a meaning for what that is. So I try not to, I'll say, great, you identify as Christian. That's good. That's helpful for me to know. But that doesn't necessarily tell me if you believe in hell or if you believe in God who would condemn you to an illness or to hell. It doesn't necessarily tell me if you're a Trinitarian. It doesn't necessarily, all kinds of things. A Trinitarian.
I don't even know what that is.
The Trinity, do you see God as a Trinity with God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, or do you have more of a Unitarian version of Christianity in your belief system? Or
I didn't know there was a difference.
Yeah, all kinds of things.
Yeah, it's amazing. We get so locked in our little world that we're not open-minded enough to really see the other things that could be a potential out there. Like I said, when I visited those Buddhist temples, that was some of the most amazing places I've ever been. And it really makes you wonder, what else is out there? But I'm sure you get all those questions when people are laying there sick or with the terminal illness. Do you get to speak at funerals at all? Do you form that type of relationship with people, or is it strictly in hospital stuff?
I do sometimes, yeah. It doesn't happen all that often, but I try to just meet people where they're at once again. And on the occasions when I have gone to speak at someone's funeral, it's oftentimes been someone who didn't already have a minister or another religious leader, spiritual leader in their life, who maybe didn't have a lot of family, didn't have those people to already rally around for them. And in some of those cases, as they realize that, they are approaching the end of their life, just need somebody to rally for them. And as basically we all do, right? That we want to be remembered, we want to be known, and we want to feel loved while we're alive, and we want to feel missed when we're gone.
Yeah. Do you have on speed dial priests and pastors and what's the Islam?
Imams?
Yeah, imams on speed dial. So when people ask for those, when my mom was sick, we were raised Catholic, and unfortunately, I won't say the priest's name, but we called and said, look, it's probably the end. We need last rites. And, that guy told me that he would check his schedule and get back with me. All the years that she spent at that church, I was just livid with that response. So how is last rites given? Are you able to do that as a chaplain, or is that more of a priest pastor thing? Or
so last rites, as they're oftentimes referred to, that's specific to a priest. I don't do that.
Okay.
And the reason is not because I'm necessarily equipped or ill-equipped for it. It's because I know that for someone who's asking for that, typically that means that they're Catholic. And in the Catholic tradition, it's a priest that does that.
And it's typically their own priest at their church.
Yeah. And so I do actually have some folks on speed dial, as you said, so that when maybe I'll find myself in that situation where I get that request, and maybe it's someone who lives out of the area but is here for their care. Or maybe it's someone who says, I'm Catholic, I identify as Catholic, but I don't have like a church or a parish that I belong to right now. So I don't have like my priest. Then I do have some folks that I can call and say, hey, here's the situation. Can you come help?
Or in today's world, set up a Zoom call for the priest to do it remotely.
Unfortunately, with COVID, that is sometimes.
I was wondering. I was joking, but I'm sure that's a thing right now. Does it count if they do it remotely, or do they have to be there? I don't know. When you do last rites, do they give you final communion? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, these days the Catholic Church tries to get away from the phrase last rites a little bit, at least as far as I'm aware and in my experience, because they try to just differentiate that oftentimes there's sort of three parts to it. There's confession and communion and anointing of the sick. And oftentimes it's that anointing piece that people are looking for when they're asking for last rites.
Because they usually do that with an oil, don't they?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So I'm a little rusty on my religious beliefs. So.
Good.
What about the people that, we've had a few patients that are terminal and they wanted to get married before they die. Do you handle that? Are you ordained to be able to marry people?
So that goes a little bit state by state and stuff. In Kentucky, you do have to be ordained to officiate weddings legally. I'm still in my process right now to become ordained, but I can still that only means legal marriage. So I still have officiated for like commitment ceremonies in the hospital. And oftentimes, if someone wants that in the hospital, sometimes that can be too challenging anyway to get the legal aspects done, because that involves like a trip to the courthouse to go get things from the clerk and get the certificate and all that. And in order to have witness signatures and blah, 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 like all the other like legalese parts of getting married. Oftentimes being in the hospital is too much of a challenge to get those things accomplished. And so in those cases, we say, well, it's less of my concern if you're married in the eyes of the law, and more my concern if you're married in your eyes and in the eyes of God or the divine, however you see it. And so in those cases, I've had folks make that ask and just be really clear, like, here's what we can do and here's what we can't. You want to do this? And oftentimes,
End up putting them in an ambulance and taking them to the courthouse, I guess.
No, more often we try to say like, well, that's out of my area to try to make those things happen. If those are things they're trying to pursue, we'll get other folks to try to help them. But I'm here to say, like, I can do this with you, and we can exchange vows. And as far as I'm concerned, you're married at that point. And I'll refer to you that way if that's what you want.
Okay. You said a commitment ceremony. What's that?
So it's basically getting married except for the legal part.
Oh, okay. So it makes you feel a little bit better about the situation versus the legalities of it. Good old government, I tell you, they like to restrict things. We were talking a little bit of that before we started. So, well, anything specific that patients may ask of you on a regular basis? I mean, is there something pretty common when people are sick or when people are terminal? When you walk in, they say, hey, thank you for coming in. Can you help me with this? Is there anything typically that patients might ask for?
The number one thing, honestly, is helping people to name the things that they're feeling, helping them to normalize that, to affirm those feelings, to know that they're not alone in those feelings. So many things about undergoing a really difficult illness or just being extremely sick in the hospital, even if it wasn't for visitor restrictions around COVID and everything, it's an isolating experience. So having somebody who's there to say, I'm here to be with you so that you're not alone, if that's what you want, and to help you to connect with the other people who you want to be with you, and to just help you to not feel alone in what you're feeling right now. And for some people, it is a accepting and peaceful feeling, and for other people, it very much is not. A lot of anger and a lot of sadness and grief and anticipatory grief, and where we're grieving the things that we're anticipating are about to happen but aren't there yet. And so whatever that might be, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and I can't imagine the stories you hear on a regular basis and the grieving. Who usually takes it the worst, the patient or the family when they're in that situation?
I don't know if I have like a usual. It's as I was saying, before, every situation's different, every person's different, every family's different, and that might even mean one thing working in a hospital has taught me for sure is that families come in every shape and form. And for some, for one patient, they might say like, I absolutely need my family with me right now, and I can't even go through this until I have them here. And for the very next patient in the very next room, it's going to be like, please no. This is already hard, and it's going to make it a lot harder when my family's in the room here. And so I, again, try just not to assume which of those directions or anything in between that a person might be feeling, what their relationship with their family might be. So we can just figure out like, where are you actually at right now, and what's going to be supportive for you. If it's having your spouse here, I'm going to do everything I can to get them here right now.
And if they don't want them here, you're making sure you keep the door locked because they can't get in. Yeah, it's funny, the different family dynamic in this world. Not everybody is the happy, loving, Leave It to Beaver family that you used to see on TV. So, well, thanks for coming in today. Anything else that might help educate people on what a chaplain does? I'm glad you covered that you're not the Grim Reaper that walks in and gives the bad news, because I'll be honest, I think a lot of people probably think that.
Yeah. It happens.
Yeah. Or you're here to push some sort of religion on somebody, because I'm sure you get that as well. There's a lot of atheist people in the world that really don't believe in much of anything. Do you handle them? Do they greet you with open arms, or how do they handle?
It varies a lot. Some people do assume that I'm here with an agenda when I show up and say I'm the chaplain. They make an assumption that I'm a Christian minister who's here to either convert them or to provide only that type of spiritual care. And so I just try to do what I can to align with them, to build some trust and rapport right away, and to just be really, really clear that I truly have no interest at all.
You're not
in
there
trying
to hand them a flyer
Yeah.
and get them to come to a church somewhere. I think
No.
as probably a lot of people probably think that. So.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
But you asked about anything else. The one other thing that I'd really just emphasized, I'd love for more people to know, is that helping people to name what their goals are, what their priorities are, what their values and beliefs are, and how those things translate to their measure of quality of life. What does quality of life mean to you? And how does that affect your decisions about your treatments, about what to pursue and what not to pursue? And how can we just make sure that that everybody on your care team is on board with what your priorities are, so that when we're moving forward with your treatment, it's aligned with that. That's a huge piece of what I do too.
Yeah, it's treatment, religion, politics. It's all personal. And you know, I've heard people say, I've decided to take no more treatments. Mm-hmm. And at that point, you see people, and I'm talking social media, you got to keep fighting. You got to do this. You got to keep fighting. People don't understand what people go through when they're going through treatments, and it's a personal decision. So I'm sure you probably, like you said, get in those conversations with people, and you're there to let them know that it's their decision, nobody else's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the most common things I hear from people who themselves are going through cancer is, who do have good supports from family, from friends, is a lot of people say, when I'm feeling up, when I'm having my good days, I got a lot of people to rally behind me. But on my days when I'm just feeling really sad or really angry and I just need to feel that, the people closest to me are trying to rally me out of those feelings, trying to say like, no, be strong. You got to stay hopeful. And that's not necessarily the most, it's understandable, but not necessarily the most supportive thing that they can do.
You know, a lot of people just like anything else, no matter if you're sick or not, people just want to be heard. Mm-hmm. And if, you know, we did an episode once on what to say and what not to say to somebody that's fighting cancer. And one of the things that was at the top of the list of what not to say, and people say it all the time, is keep fighting, keep fighting, keep fighting. And if you're sick with it and you're tired of the treatments because they make you so sick and so miserable, at some point you've had enough. And I think the message is let people make that decision on their own.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you kind of help give people the okay to make that decision on their own. It's nobody's decision but their own. So it's a very good message that you obviously talk to people about. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming in today. It's been great talking to you again. It's glad we've uncovered what the Chaplain does. We've all seen that door and didn't know what it was. So thank you so much for today.
Thanks for having me here, Mike.
If you want to help Shirley's Way, I'll play Kelly today. Go to shirleysway.org and set up a $10 monthly donation now. We have several online raffles. If you go to shirleysway.org gaming, you'll see all of our raffles that we do. And as of today, we just hit our hours needed for potential ad revenue for YouTube. So go out to our shirleytalk.org YouTube channel or shirleytalkpodcast.org for all of our podcasts. See you soon, and thank you so much.